here today because we are going to learn something very important. Selling to different generations requires so much energy. You have to know so many things. You have to know how to text. You have to know how to write. You actually have to know the dreaded word, pick up the phone. Because when you're selling to different generations, it requires different approaches. Let's run through some of the generations that we have in our world right now. Don't raise your hand because I don't want you to tell us what your age is. But the matures, they're over 68. The baby boomers, 50 to 68. Generation Y, 35 to 50, 49. Generation X, 35 to 50. Generation Y, 20 to 35. And of course then we have our Generation Z, which they're having an identity crisis. We don't know if they're going to be the 2020s, the iGens, or the Generation Zs. The Generation Y has a little bit of an identity crisis because they're also called millennials. Let's play a game. Only answer this question if you fall within this mark. If you are a mature or a baby boomer, answer this question. How did Kennedy die?
Assassinated.
Which one?
And are you a boomer or a mature? Did you see? This is what happens with Generation X. They like to be heard. If you are a Generation X or a Generation Y, how did Kennedy die? Generation X?
Which one?
Plane crash.
Plane crash. And if you are a Generation Y, how did Kennedy die? And most of them will say, I don't know. If you're a mature, he was shot in Dallas. If you're an X, he died in a plane crash on his way to Martha's Vineyard. And if you're a Y, you're probably going, Kennedy? Who? We get the idea of this game, right? Follow your generation. If you are a mature, who is Ron Howard?
Opie.
Thank you. If you are a baby boomer, who is Ron Howard? Opie. Come on, my baby boomers. Who is Ron Howard? Richie Cunningham. If you are a Generation X, who is Ron Howard?
Director.
He's a director. And if you're a Generation Y or Z, who is Ron Howard?
Who is Ron Howard?
No, that is Bryce Howard's dad. And for those of you that don't know Bryce Howard, she was the star in Jurassic World and also one of the Spider-Man shows. So she is an uprising star, and that's how people know Ron Howard. That's her dad. Generations, different values. We'll do one more. Boomers and above. Who is Neil Patrick Howard?
Doogie Howser.
Doogie Howser. And if I was to ask all the other generations, who is Neil Patrick Howard? Harris. Neil Patrick Harris.
How I Met Your Mother.
How I Met Your Mother. We all have different drivers, different values, different experiences. Values, things that move us. Every generation has something different. And that is just an experiment to show you, based on where you were in your life at certain times, what you remember and who you remember. The matures are the most loyal group you can possibly imagine. When they buy a product, they stick with a product. They were World War II babies. They were people that were working during World War II. They were in the war themselves. Education for them was a dream. Their families, at dinner, let's all sit around and talk. It's all about the communication. It's all about who are you. It's all about let's work as a team. They're team-oriented. This is the group that never spent a penny unless they had it in their pocket. Save, save, save. Along came the baby boomers. Easy generational change because after the war, boom, we had lots of babies, lots of fun times. The boomers, you can thank them for credit card debt. Yes, they were impatient. They didn't want to save. Now we had mortgages, we had credit cards, we had bankruptcy. Nobody knew about this stuff. They didn't know how to manage this. The baby boomers, they had an education. It was a birthright. How many of the baby boomers heard when they were growing up, you're going to college? It wasn't a question. It was a demand. That is what you were going to do. The family. It's disintegrating a little bit. You're starting to hear the big D word, or divorce. But that's okay. We were still holding it together. Then, when you got into the Generation X, what a difference. Now, the world actually says every 15 to 20 years is a generation, which is how you get all these different generations. But these were your latchkey kids. I'm a boomer. I was brought up on touch-tone phones. Does anybody remember the first touch-tone phones? I would hate to see my parents' bill for long-distance calls, because when you first got that touch-tone phone, it was a musical instrument. Mary had a little lamb. And I can just imagine what country I was calling at that time. The latchkey kids, or the Generation X, they came in and they're cynical because they watched their parents go into debt over their head. And they came back and said, whoa, this is not good. Their family is truly disintegrating. Divorce, yours, mine, and ours, it's all over the place. They're having a hard time identifying with their family. I remember I was working with Pete Marwick, 8 o'clock at night. Now, one of the things about the boomer is they are incredibly loyal. They will work their tail off. They will work 80-hour work weeks. When you sell them a product, as long as they like your product, they are going to come back over and over again. If you sell them Project A and they like it, they're going to stay with you. They are not going to go looking. It's going to take something difficult for you to actually get them to move. This is the group that really is going to stick with you. When I was at KPMG Mark, I was working those 60, 80-hour work weeks, and it's 5:30 at night. One of the guys comes in, and he's a Generation X. He goes, see you tomorrow, and he walks away, and I'm thinking, where is he going? It's only 5:30. He's got another 3 hours of work. This was the group that was perceived as the lazy whiners. But they had it figured out. It was all about life balance. Life work. It's a balancing act. They are cynical. They want to know what's in it for me. Don't BS them, because they don't want to hear that. They're all about get to the point. Then you come into Generation Y. A great generation, also called the millennials. They are worldly. They are cultural. Education, well, I'm not really sure I want an education because I don't know if I'll ever be able to pay back those loans. This is the group that comes in and says, I'm going to buy something, but I'm not that loyal. I'm kind of fickle. Maybe I'll change if this product looks good. Okay, I'm going to move over here. Adjust your sales approach. I went to buy a car. Got there was a salesman. He shook my hand. He looked me in the eye. Baby boomers, they want you to look them in the eye. They want you to have great speech. Don't say something like, why don't you come with? They'll look at you like, say what? What did you say? They want to know you're focusing on them. Don't be looking at your phone trying to say, oh, I've got 5 texts from my girlfriend, and put it back in your pocket. They want to know this sale is important. They want to know that you are completely focused on them. My car salesman was great. He had all the right words, all the right movements. I went back to the office and I said, I'm buying a car. And I told my Generation X person all about this car. What do they say online? I don't know. So he gets online and he reviews it. Oh, it's only got a 3-star rating, da-da-da-da-da. And I was rather depressed. Because when Generation does a sale, they know everything there is to know about that product before they walk in the showroom. They know everything. They have done their research. They know their stars. They know the price. You can't BS them. Look them in the eye. Make sure they know exactly what you're saying and that you're telling them the truth. I was a tad deflated. I called my daughter, Generation Y. I said, I'm buying a car. She said, what kind? I told her. Let me find out what my friends say. And before I know it, 3,000 people on Facebook are all giving me their opinion about this car. Because they're all about the social acceptance. What did my friends think? Did they like it? Did they think it was a good car? Should we change it? 3 generations, 3 different ways to approach. If you think about it, if you're talking to a mature, they're going to want you to follow up in writing, a handwritten note, something that we don't do anymore. If you're talking to a baby boomer, they want you to email them. Generation Y, text them. And Generation X, Vimeo, Instagram, anything that shows that you are there and you understand what's happening with their generation. Different generations, different approaches. You need to learn each one of them to be successful in today's world. Adam Chester's story.